Welcome into the Inquirer podcast. It's Jeremy Werner and Derek Piper. We're back in Illinois. Our guy, Joey Wagner, taking care of us. Derek Piper on baby watch. Not arrived quite yet, baby number 2, but it could happen at any minute. Like I could hear Haley in the background just saying, Derek, we got to go. So just be prepared for that. If you need to, Derek, that's fine. I'll go solo.
All right. Yeah, this thing's in overtime, man. Both my kids, late arrivers. So eviction notice is on Friday. So we're going then regardless. But as of right now, we appreciate Joey Wagner holding it down in Columbus. And yes, back home, just awaiting the arrival.
I'm just waiting for Piper saying you got the next 3 keys and a pick. I'll make my debut for the Illini basketball keys and a pick preview. But Derek, you got this one right. A little easier than you had predicted, but you predicted an Illinois victory, and they get the victory 87-75. Big game for Ty Rodgers. We will talk about him. I have loved what he's brought the last couple games, but the story of this game is Terrence Shannon. He's back. He knocked off the rust in the second half, 18 points in the second half, 23 for the game. Looked like All-American, All-Big Ten first-team selection. Terrence Shannon, aggressive to the rim, defending, Derek. What he was doing on Bruce Thornton in that second half was really impressive. Got him going in transition and got Thornton into foul trouble, and Ohio State just couldn't handle it. This is the game we might look back on and say, that's when Terrence Shannon became Terrence Shannon again, and that's when Illinois got back in the Big Ten race. Or at least that's what you hope after a performance like that.
Very well could be. It did look like Terrence Shannon, the All-American candidate that we were familiar with prior to the suspension, especially the downhill ability and transition. I just don't know how you guard him in the open floor, just how powerful he is, how he can shift and Euro step, and with referees being less and less inclined to call charges too, although I know Terrence got one early in the first half, but it's just so hard to contain him. I like that they ran some ball screen stuff through him in the early going in the first half. I thought that was good to just show more confidence in him, and maybe I'm sure it's something they've been repping in practice. Had some shots in the first half that just rimmed out. I thought that he was online. A lot of these in the first 3 games were not necessarily close. A lot of his misses, short for sure. Yep. So he misses, I think, first 4 threes, or one for his first 4 threes. Makes a couple in the second half. Gets going downhill, and like you said, defensively too. He was really engaged and really energetic, intense, and that just seemed like his potential breakout. And Ohio State defensively not very good. They're towards the bottom of the Big Ten. So it's set up as a really good opportunity for him to go in there and kind of get the rust off and get his game going. So I thought he did that. You mentioned the work he did on Thornton. Jamison Battle didn't really do a whole lot in the second half either, so that helped as well. So really having Shannon and Domask going together, who I know we're going to talk about, when you see what this team can be when both guys are 20 plus on a given night. FAU was that. This was the second example of that this season. It's a pretty darn good 1-2 punch offensively.
Yeah. And, I just loved his aggressiveness early. And as you said, Derek, like those shots in the first half, didn't feel like any of them were forced. They were open. They were good takes. Some of them were online. They looked like they had the distance. They just rimmed out. So I thought that was really encouraging. And Brad Underwood, I just heard in his post-game presser, said, because Joey asked, did this carry over from the last couple minutes? Because Terrence made some big plays in the last couple minutes. Some of them were just rebounds. Some of them were just doing the little things. So you certainly hope, if you're an Illinois fan and Illinois teammate, that those things carry over. Because as you said, Shannon and Domask with a quiet 23, 8 of 8 from the free throw line, 7 of 12 from the field, just really bullied those other guys. There's just not many better 1-2 scoring punches, not just in the Big Ten, but in the country when those guys are going like they are. And you see against FAU, which I still feel like could be an Elite 8, Sweet 16 caliber matchup, you see what having those two guys together can do.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that, Marcus obviously is just so smooth, and he can be one of those players that doesn't make maybe the splash play, but the mid-range jumpers and backing guys in deep. I thought Illinois played better out of the booty ball tonight with the way they moved it on the perimeter when he'd pass out after drawing a double team. They offensively, and by the way, they kicked up to 5th in the country in offensive efficiency on KenPom. They really had everything going tonight. They shot 40-some% from 3. They had the offensive rebounds going for the second chance points. able to get the rim. They had fast break points. Domask doing his thing. So, and then Ty Rodgers, who I know we're going to talk about too, was a guy that was making things happen. So, with Marcus and Terrence together, you've got two different stylistic ways to go about your offense with getting Terrence in transition, with getting Terrence in ball screens. I think that I even like the wrinkle of using Ty as the screener with Terrence and that ability to kind of – I just like his quick rolls, and obviously you can still use Coleman as a spacer there, as a spot-up shooter in that sense. So there's different ways you can go about it, and obviously you can play the booty ball, especially against teams that maybe are smaller and you can get switches on. So I wrote about going into this game, Illinois' offensive flow seemed to be disjointed, seemed to be out of sync against Indiana and just at different points here recently. But they had it going tonight, and it was a really nice, encouraging bounce back.
Everyone that's joining us on our YouTube channel, we really appreciate it. More than 300 people already. Hit that like button, subscribe to us, hit the notifications bell. If you want to send a super chat, we'll get to those. We'll get to some of the questions later on in this podcast. Before we get into one Ty Rodgers, Derek, I want to ask you, Ohio State 68 in the net rankings. They have now lost 6 of 7. This is starting to look a lot like last year for the Buckeyes, and I don't think it's good news for Chris Holtmann. Does this hold up as a quad 1 win?
It's a great question. I was looking through their schedule briefly, and they have some winnable games at home down the stretch. I mean, they play Michigan at home, Nebraska, who's a different team, on the road. They got Maryland at home, although playing better, Indiana at home. They're at the barn. They're at Rutgers. Like, they've got some winnable games in there, but I'm confident that that's not a win against the NCAA tournament team. I think I'm pretty confident saying that. They were 68th in the net going in, top 75 for a quad 1. My gut would lean no. We'll see how far they drop down after losing tonight. Maybe they're probably in the high 70s, or I should say low 70s, maybe 70, 71. But it'll be close. It'll be like similar to the win at Wisconsin last year. The Badgers weren't a tournament team. Ultimately, that teetered between quad 1, quad 2 as the season went on. So I think it will be right on the fringe going into Selection Sunday. But you should hope, if you're an Illini fan, that the Buckeyes don't completely just bottom out to make sure that is a quad 1.
What has happened to that team? Like, why aren't they better? Because I think Holtmann's kind of a good coach. Like, I feel like he has been. I kind of like the roster he's put together. I know it's still younger than a lot of these teams, but they've played a lot of basketball now. So what do you feel is wrong with that team?
It's a good question. I think that defensively, they don't stop enough people. Their metrics towards the bottom of the Big Ten, and you look at Michigan's way down there, Penn State, and then Ohio State, pretty much third to last, 12th in the Big Ten in defensive efficiency. And they've been that the last few years. They've been outside of the top 100 in defensive efficiency nationally. So not a squad that's getting enough stops. And I do think they still – in contrast, although last year they went old, they got a number of transfers. Sean McNeil, obviously they had Justice Suing back for another year, but it's a bit of a younger team. I know, like you said, they brought back guys like Akpara, Thornton, Gale. Those are all sophomores, so you expect that leap there. They had a decent freshman class, although you're not seeing a lot of it with Scotty Middleton and Devin Royal right now. But I think it is offensively. Jamison Battle, I mean, he's playing his best on paper season of his career. It's his most efficient version of Jamison Battle that we've seen. So I think that it's kind of the defense that isn't there. I mean, they just gave up 80-plus points in 3 straight losses at Nebraska, at Northwestern, and against Illinois. So I think that's kind of where it starts. And I don't know. It is looking rough for him. 2 straight tournaments, if they miss it, I don't see how he's back probably.
Yeah, that's a good job. That's a really good job. You wonder what else opens in the Big Ten. Michigan. I don't think Indiana would at this point, but that's a really good job. And Dusty May could be a possibility at any of those Big Ten schools that want a new head coach. But Derek, Ty Rodgers, what a performance! Double-double, his second of his career, 13 points, 10 rebounds. I believe 5 were on the offensive glass or 4 were on the offensive glass. Since that Zach Edey game, since they did what you thought teams should do and put a big man on Ty Rodgers, he is averaging 9.4 points per game, shooting 55% from the field, and his efficiency offensively is great. I looked at you during the Indiana game, and I'm like, why is this guy not playing more? He's just attacking. He's attacking the rim. He's finishing better at the rim. He's making free throws now. And man, when you get him attacking the offensive glass, like that's what Illinois is so good at. They're so good at attacking that offensive glass, getting second chance points when Shannon or Domask or even Hawkins breaks down a defense. So what stood out to you today about Ty Rodgers? Because he really did take advantage of Okpara guarding him.
Yeah, the most minutes he's played since Shannon's been back. In the previous 3, had been under 20, and he eclipsed that early in the second half, and obviously deserved that uptick in minutes. So just the intensity and the aggression that he had right off the bat, the going to the glass, attacking the basket. I think that it was prior to Purdue making that move to put a center on that he started to really uptick his confidence and aggression around the basket. I thought the way he attacked Boo Buie early in that Northwestern game in Champaign started to show a little bit of it, I think, in bragging rights and in that FDU game as well. So that Edey matchup kind of threw him off a little bit, and it could have, to his credit, could have maybe derailed him as he saw, oh, okay, I'm going to see Sissoko and then some Julian Reese and on down the line and whatnot. But he's handled it well, and he's worked on his game. He's still someone that, yeah, I think tonight he finished strong around the bucket. I think he's getting to the rim, obviously, and he's someone that shouldn't be afraid to go to the free throw line with the way he's shooting it. I think he can only improve and through time of making sure he doesn't miss some of those bunnies that have been left out there at times. But if he plays with that level of just motor on the glass and finishing around the basket, I think that he is a guy that can make a good pass here and there, obviously. And then defensively, we've talked about, the Northwestern game. He kind of got hung up on some screens too much, and Illinois just collectively did a pretty good job on the perimeter. I know Gale got going in the first half, but for Thornton to not burn you like he did, or like he could have, like he did last year, and then battle to go quiet in the second half, that was good. But big time. You were on it with Ty in the Indiana game. That's really carried over tonight and going forward, hopefully, for Illinois.
I just love the toughness, the aggression he is giving you when, to be honest with you, I'm looking at Quincy Guerrier being like, where's it at? So to have Ty Rodgers giving you that role, I think is really important. The other note I'll give you, Derek, last 5 games, 10 assists to just 4 turnovers for Ty Rodgers. So Illinois, by the way, 6 turnovers tonight. Domask had 1 bad one that led to that dunk, but single-digit turnovers in 4 of their last 6 games. They had in their first 15 games just 4 single-digit turnover games. So they're taking care of the ball. And when you have Domask and Shannon and efficient scores, you play this booty ball, kind of a slow tempo, but you get so many possessions because you're not turning it over and you're getting offensive rebounds. You're going to score a lot of points.
It's crazy that we're sitting here going into February and they're number 5 in the country in offensive efficiency. How many
you said that? I was like, whoa, 5
times that's even higher than they were 2020, 2021 with Io and Kofi and Trent and on down the line. They were top 10. They were 8th, I think, at the end of the year that season. But for them to even eclipse that mark, and there's still a lot of basketball to be played, but they've been on paper the best offense Illinois has seen since 04-05, which is crazy. For as much time as we spent talking about
it's
the
different
point guard situation,
right?
Yeah, and shooting, how much of a question was that? It's credit to Brad with the schematic adjustments, dabbling with booty ball and going in on it. Obviously, Terrence with what he's done over the course of this season, and him, as they hope, getting back to who he was pre-suspension, and then just the role players, the fact that Coleman and Quincy are much improved from 3, and you just got a number of different ways. And yeah, on the glass too. Like Justin Harmon's a really good rebounding guard. He's doing that. Ty's doing it on the glass. So they can just hurt you in different areas. They're a good, for the most part, good 3-point shooting team. They got ways they can get downhill on you. They'll hit you with the glass. And now they're a good free throw shooting team. I think they went 18 for 20 tonight.
Yeah, I mean, Domask is shooting 90% during conference play. I just wanted to shout him out because just as he is the engine of this offense. Like they run stuff for him more than anybody. And Brad goes, we don't run much for Terrence. It's true. It's mostly for Marcus and really Ty. Like those are kind of the guys who initiate a lot of the offense. But Marcus carrying the load he is offensively, like it's just fun to watch. It's a lot like who's this guy at Stephen F. Austin?
Thomas Walkup.
It's got that walk up vibe where they just run it through this big wing and search out matchups and say, hey, try and stop him. And he makes good decisions. So what a transfer addition Marcus Domask has been.
Huge. Brian Mullins is probably a little salty that Micah Shrewsbury shared the sugar with the booty ball concepts, man. Send it down Carbondale's way. Obviously, they'd have to do it a year early versus Illinois catching on and pretty much just taking a good game plan with Pickett and then using it with Marcus. But it's been a heck of an addition, and it's one that, that was something that I heard when they first got Marcus. And you always wonder at times when you hear comps and you try to take it for what they're worth. But stylistically, it made sense as far as a multi-dimensional, skilled wing type guy that has been playing kind of a bigger, can kind of play with the ball in his hands, and kind of play there in the mid post. And you heard that Brad saw him on tape and he said, that reminds me of Thomas Walkup. We got to go get him. And heck of a call by him. And we've been over that a number of times, but it's worth reemphasizing that he wasn't maybe the sexiest addition out there in the portal. I was looking at Evan Maya at one point within the last few weeks, and he was like graded out 85th or something in that range as far as transfer portal additions. He's named me 10 that's been better in all of college basketball.
Yeah, it's a short list. By the way, Ty Rodgers, part of those free throws, now shooting 66% from the free throw line, of just shooting 38% last season. So kudos to him. And let's get into the bench, man. Dane Danges, 4 for 6 during Big Ten play from the free throw line, but got to feel good for him, man. It's been a bad year for him. It's been a rough year because he just doesn't fit exactly what this team needs. But Coleman Hawkins and Quincy Guerrier weren't very good tonight. Quincy, I just don't think has been physical. I don't think he's had that bite, as I think you have said, as Brad has said, both on the glass and defensively and just around the rim. I think he's been a little soft on his finishes. Coleman Hawkins just got in his head. He got in the foul trouble, and it's been brewing for a little bit. And I think Stephen Bartle probably hit it on the head. I think he's got a reputation now with these refs because he's so doing the histrionics and all of that. Wasn't the best game for Coleman. He still made an impact, but was out a lot of the game. And Dane Danger comes in, 7 points, 5 rebounds, showed some great hands on a catch and toughness on these finishes, and gave him something on the glass. Like, he's still not great defensively, Derek, but to give that contribution after the year he's had, I thought was significant. And that you could tell Brad was really proud of him for locking in, because like Georgie in that 21 season, there's just going to be some moments you need 5 good minutes from Dane, and you got 11 good minutes from Dane tonight.
I'm glad you mentioned Georgie, because that's where I was going. And it wasn't to the level of Georgie in the Big Ten tournament against Ohio State when that was crucial with Kofi having 2 fouls, but his minutes were good tonight. Like the putbacks and that one hand through contact on kind of like a putback fast break opportunity was good. And defensively, he didn't hurt you. I mean, he had a block and did some good things. So I was happy for Dane. It's not a guy that has been, to our knowledge, as far as like, loafing off or just, in a bad mood or whatnot. I know that, of course, he's probably got to be upset that he's not playing more, but sure, it's a guy that's a good basketball player. And Illinois just stylistically is going in a different direction. And Coleman came back when, he obviously could have stayed in the draft and tried his chances. So you need, and it can be a really good value. I mean, there's a lot of worse caliber bigs that you can go to on the bench, obviously around the country. So
he's better than Zed Key. Like Zed Key's a heck of a flopper tonight. Like, and I like Zed Key. Like, I've kind of liked him, but Dane's like 4 inches taller than him, and kind of exposed that, I thought, tonight. So I thought it was a good matchup for Dane, but I do think he took advantage of it. I just thought he was tough and physical, and I didn't think Quincy was kind of bringing that to you. So kudos to him, but also kudos, Derek, to DGL and Amani. Like, those were some big minutes, and it's not like those guys made huge plays, but Marcus really carried Illinois offensively. Justin Harmon had a few key buckets, so I don't want to overlook Justin Harmon's contribution tonight. 6 points on 3 of 5 shooting, gave him some rebounds, played better defense, I thought, tonight. Thought it was good enough for Illinois. But to get Amani and DGL in the final 4 minutes when Dane, Hawkins, and Terrence are all in foul trouble, and to help Illinois go on that run, like 18-6 run at the end of the half, and they were on the court for that. I thought that was big. Amani with a big take to the rim, was confident. DGL looked locked in defensively. I thought it was a soft foul call and a night of soft fouls on both teams, to be honest with you. But kudos to those guys. They got thrown in there and they got rewarded. So, Brad mentioned first time you've had the full roster really healthy and available, with Amani being out, Nico being out, Terrence being out, and it showed. The depth showed up tonight.
It was great. I know you look back at it. I think Terrence checks out with about 5 minutes left in the first half. It's a tie game. Coleman checks out a minute later, so 4 minutes left. I think Illinois is up 2, and very well could have swung the other way for the home side to have some momentum going into the locker room. Ultimately, Illinois carries a 7-point lead at the half with those guys in there. Amani with a nice and one take. He didn't finish off the free throw. I agree with DGL, and not to rag on Nico by any means, but I just feel like that's the way Brad should go. I think he should be the guard off the freshman guard off the bench in that situation. I much prefer him defensively. I like his grit and his intensity on defense. He did get called for the foul. I thought probably a raw deal for him to get whistled for that one.
I thought he get called on the reach, not the body. Like he was just bodying up on that one.
Yeah, it was one of those like, oh, you call that, because he was all over. Was it Thornton or whoever it was that was like trying to back down or whatnot? But then the trap comes and they call him with the body, and I just feel like he's got the ability to kind of be a little bit of that juice guy defensively. Sincere had that last year. That's a high bar because Sincere swung some really big games for last year's team, and DGL still hasn't played a whole lot, but I think he's got a little bit of that potential. Yes, offensively still the efficiency's not there, and he can maybe hunt some shots at times, but I like what I saw from him. I liked Amani getting some minutes, and to circle it back for what you said about Quincy, I did have a theory. Maybe he's just dad tired. Maybe he's a little new dad tired. I don't know if anybody's going to accept that as a response, but he played
a couple of weeks.
He played a little soft tonight for sure, and needs to be better. Defensively needs to be better. And Coleman, like you mentioned, kind of being targeted by the refs. We saw that with Curbelo too. Like Curbelo was someone that talked to every official, and I feel like they just probably got sick of him. Coleman probably had this coming. You can argue whether or not, did Key flop? Did he have an argument? Maybe he did, but he has to be smarter than that, knowing that was 3 and 4 going to the bench with that much time left.
Yeah, Quincy, this is just 2 games in a row, right? 7 points, 6 rebounds during those last 2 games. That's not good enough for what they need. There were some moments in Northwestern that I thought he could have been a little bit more physical, hit a double-double in that game, though. So like he was on that huge double-double streak. So maybe it's just a little downturn there, but just like to see him be more physical. I just don't think it's been there the last couple of games. Anything else you want to hit on, Derek, before we turn the page and look forward from this game? Luke Goody didn't play a ton of minutes, but when Gary is struggling like that, the good news is you could probably play Ty Rodgers there, right? Or if Dane can come in and give you those kind of minutes.
Yeah, I agree with that. Luke, ability to hit the 3, but did get taken advantage of at times defensively. I know Mahaffey went right after his sidestep 3, went booty ball on him the other end and got an and 1. On that note, Illinois in the first half defensively was concerning. I was
going to ask you, like 1.15 points per possession. Like the defense still a concern here. Like they went down again in the Ken Palm ratings, the efficiency ratings defensively.
Got to be better. Yeah, it's going to be something that pops up again when you play a better team that can hold you down a little bit more at their defensive end. So it's still something that they have to be able to address and get more ball tough and be able to stop the ball and those type of things. Quincy playing better is a big part of that. I do like that they didn't let Thornton go off. And I think that I know that we've taken a pretty keen look at, where the shots are coming from. And I know in the first half, I think there was 8 shots at the rim for Ohio State, maybe 6 threes and maybe 14, 15 twos that weren't at the rim. So Illinois will live with those.
Yeah. But
there are times where their ball screen coverage leaves space open in the mid-range, which some guys you don't want to allow that. And sometimes it's just guys that can get straight line drive. Like like Goody and Domask obviously isn't the most fleet of foot. So
seems like Coleman's been very concerned about allowing the lob. Like it's
Yeah.
like his drop has been way deeper, and maybe I'll ask Latulip about it on Thursday when he comes on the podcast. But I'd still rather see him be aggressive and cut those guys off and use his hands. Like it just doesn't feel like he's disrupting as much. Like he's worried about giving up the guy behind him, but that's got to be the sink and fill guy.
Right.
Maybe he's not confident enough in Goody or whoever it is to do that. But it just feels like you mentioned against Northwestern, the drop coverage looked so much deeper than it normally does. And I felt that way in the first half tonight too.
Yep, for sure. I know Josh Pastner pointed it out on the halftime next to Paul Coach. No, I'm just kidding. But I think
Nice
that
guy. Really nice guy.
He is a nice guy. Coleman, it's a guy that maybe hasn't played a ton of 5-man ball screen. I know he played some 5 last year, and we're far enough in the season now where I'm not saying that this is all new to him, but I think there are times where maybe there's some of that. I'm not, maybe the staff is telling him to leave that mid-range game open, but just knowing his mobility, I feel like there's a lot more room for him to be aggressive in that. So I would look for that for sure. And it just felt like for a while, Illinois was just kind of cruising a little bit defensively and didn't have that bite until late in that first half where they got some stops and put together a nice little, I think it was 11-3 run right before halftime. And then Thornton not going off in the second and Battle kind of quieting down was good. But yeah, going forward, I still think defensively you're wanting more for a team that obviously has a lot of ability at the other end.
I do think the math worked out in the end. Ohio State made a bunch of mid-range twos early in that half, and by the end of the half, it really came down. Second half, I thought they were just getting more at the rim than they were, and they made a couple threes, but at the end of the day, Illinois made 3 more threes and a lot more free throws, got a bunch more second chance points, and that's kind of the math game Brad Underwood is playing in this entire thing. All right, we'll get to some of your questions here coming up. You can send those in if you guys super chats. We always appreciate those. We got about 10 more minutes here. Nebraska comes to town, and Nebraska is terrible on the road. 0-5 on the road so far this season. They do have Wisconsin at home, so Illinois will be rooting for them on Thursday night as they try to take down the Badgers at where they've been so good in Lincoln. But they're 0-5 on the road, 5-0 at home during Big Ten play. Casey comes to town. I'll be I can't wait to see him, but it's a skilled team. It's a really skilled team. Illinois is more physical. I think they should be able to bother Nebraska, but you got to be locked in defensively because they got some guys who can fill it up with Casey, Bryce Williams, Rink Mass. Hoiberg did a phenomenal job in the portal.
Absolutely, yeah. Rink Mass is having a heck of a season, getting him from the Valley, and someone that, similar to Coleman, can kind of take you out if you're a big. So it won't be that Coleman's in range where he's uncomfortable defensively, but similar, I think, at the other end too. Rink Mass has an ability to play outside the paint. Bryce Williams coming over from Charlotte, a guy that's a physical forward that can get buckets, and Casey, your guy, man. What a 3-point specialist. Don't let him go off.
Yeah, I mean, this might be a game where you're like, DGL, go hound that guy for a little bit to bother him. Just don't foul 3-point shooters. Terrence did it tonight. Illinois has done it a little bit too much, but yeah, you better get through screens. If Ty Rodgers is guarding him, get through screens. You can't rest. Like Justin Harmon's probably the guy because I just feel like he can keep up with him, but he's got to be locked in. You can't let up on him because once he gets hot, man, he's difficult.
Yeah, you cannot, like you said, you're going to have to recognize the actions that they're trying to get him off of to be able to get some pin downs and some screens to set up those looks. But really important not to get screened, not to let him in a rhythm. But it is good that maybe you get the double-edged sword going your way, although I don't know if the double-edged sword is supposed to be a thing that helps you. But anyways, like them playing, they're so supercharged at home. If they can beat Wisconsin, then on Sunday, when you do battle with them where they're 0-5 in the league, you can take advantage of that. And, oh, by the way, Purdue and Wisconsin do battle, and somebody's got to lose in that one. So it's not going to be an easy game, but you do like the fact that you wouldn't have probably thought it going into the year. You caught a break not getting a double dip with Nebraska and having to go to Lincoln.
And who does Nebraska guard? Bryce is big, Alex big, Rink Mask. Is obviously a little bit mobile, slow-footed, but their guard play is pretty small. They got Lawrence 6'3", 183, Tominaga 6'2", 180, Hoiberg 6 foot 183, Wilchers good player 6'5", 215, but like you got matchups you can exploit offensively. For me, it's just about locking in defensively for Illinois. But we got to look back here, Derek. Now as you're kind of looking back on Illinois in this recent stretch, the Northwestern loss was just an epic game, and Northwestern give them so much credit for being able to go win that game. But since that Maryland loss, Illinois has won 4 or 5, and they've kept pace in this Big Ten. So that Maryland game was a disappointment. Your 2 other losses in the Big Ten right now are at Purdue and at Northwestern, 2 teams I think are going to be in the NCAA tournament. And now if you can continue to take care of business that teams are supposed to take care of business against, like Michigan, Rutgers, Indiana, Ohio State, and now Nebraska, you're setting yourself up there. I mean, we're midway through the Big Ten season, and Illinois is sitting there at 7-3, which is just 1.5 games behind Wisconsin, 1 game behind Purdue. You've kept yourself in the race here. And now if Terrence Shannon can get back, let's see what you can do, because Purdue and Wisconsin play each other. Wisconsin's got to head on the road. It's just some tougher games here. And, of course, you do too with Michigan State coming up next weekend. But Illinois got a chance to make up some ground, and they've kept themselves in the race.
For sure. Yeah. And that's something that, given what this team has been dealt with, Shannon going out and all the distractions been on the outside, you'll take 16-5 and 7-3 in the league. I think you would, for sure. Now, it'd be great to have another quad 1 win sprinkled in there, especially if Ohio State doesn't hold up. Of course, you could have gotten that at Northwestern when you had the last shot at the very end. And I think defensively just were too spotty and made too many mistakes. Maryland on your home floor, that is still a quad 3 loss. So something that you would have obviously liked to avoid, but you pulled out a game, a tough shot that you took from Michigan State, and were able to withstand and win that game. Blew out Northwestern without Terrence, obviously, and then we're fortunate to dodge IU, and then we're able to play a lot better tonight. So I think that to be in this situation where either Purdue's going to match you with 3 losses in the league, or Wisconsin's going to take a second loss, potentially a third, if they lose on Thursday in Lincoln. And as long as you hold court at home against the Huskers, like, you're in a pretty good spot to have a chance, because you get to play both those teams one more time down the stretch. So
if you're an Illinois fan, are you rooting for Wisconsin or Purdue on Sunday?
Good question.
Because I was thinking, like, it's kind of crazy to be rooting for Purdue because I don't see many losses left on their schedule, and I just think they're the better team. But I don't see much for Wisconsin. They're so consistent. I mean, sure, they could lose at Iowa. Maryland, I think, can give them issues. Then you got Illinois and Purdue to end the year, but I have a hard time seeing them getting to 5 losses if they don't lose to Purdue. So, yeah, I think you want to muddy this up, because Purdue is still susceptible if everyone else isn't great. Wisconsin's a little bit deeper, it feels like to me, than Purdue. It's just Purdue's got the giant in the middle. So I think I'd be rooting for Purdue at this point, but that sounds crazy.
It's tough because they do have to then go to Mackey, where you'd probably expect Purdue to win. So maybe if you ultimately wanted those two to split, that each took 1 loss, then maybe you could talk me into Wisconsin winning that one, Purdue matching you with 3 losses. And then
you really need Wisconsin to lose on the road to Nebraska. You need Nebraska to do what they do at home.
Right. Yeah, for sure. So I think that you could talk yourself probably into either way, because I think if Purdue wins at Wisconsin, even if they beat Wisconsin again, Illinois could deliver them what would at least be their 3rd loss if they beat them in the regular season finale, or I should say the home finale at Illinois. But Illinois would have to run the table essentially the rest of the way. I'm not saying Purdue isn't going to slip up somewhere else, but their schedule is pretty slight, I think, outside of those Wisconsin and Illinois battles. So maybe actually I just might have changed my mind. It does depend on what happens in Lincoln, but I might say Wisconsin, just so then it turns around in March and Purdue beats the Badgers in West Lafayette.
All right, Scotty B. If Brad Underwood fixes this team after all the distractions, could he finally win Big Ten Coach of the Year? He's had to get this team up to full throttle twice this year. It might be happening. If they finish second in the Big Ten ahead of Wisconsin, I think Brad Underwood gets it. If Greg Gard wins the Big Ten, Greg Gard's going to get it. And I think he's deserving of it. It is crazy that we could go 5 years of Brad Underwood having by far the best record. I guess him and Purdue will be very close. Him and Painter will be very close of having the best record in the Big Ten and not winning Big Ten Coach of the Year. But it's because Greg Gard would win the Big Ten, those 2 years we think he had the best case. But yeah, man, he's deserving. What he's doing this year, I think, is phenomenal. Like, yeah, sure, there's things you can criticize defensively, this, that, or the other. Like, he's put together a great roster. He's getting a lot out of them. He's made adjustments, and he's developed talent really, really well. So I think Brad, Greg Gard, I don't think Chris Collins is going to get there because I don't think they're really going to contend at the top of the Big Ten. But if they finish third or fourth, he's going to be in the mix as well. And we should never overlook Painter, like just because he's got the best team probably. So, but I think he's got to finish above Gard for him to have a chance.
Yeah, if Painter does only lose 3 league games, like if they go 17-3 and ends up being a wide gap, then he might end up getting it.
Yeah.
It would be interesting if Wisconsin and Illinois tie for second, like which way people would lean. I know that Illinois was going in with the higher expectations, although Wisconsin's still, I think, in the preseason poll in the Athletic, were they 5th or 6th?
I think Gard would get it if they tied. I really do, because expectations were high for Illinois.
Yeah.
Wisconsin was still like 5 or 6, but if they won like 15, if they went 15-5 and Illinois went 15-5, I do think Gard would get it. For me, it'd be splitting hairs because I think they both done a phenomenal job.
What if they tied in the league, but Illinois won the head-to-head?
You might get a guy like me who covers Illinois to vote for him, but I don't know if the rest of the Big Ten writers.
I think you're right, though. I think you're right. If Illinois
got to finish
clear second and above Wisconsin, that he could still very much win it. Although if I wouldn't rule out Painter if they finish with just a crazy good Big Ten record, win by a couple of games, he might be able to capture it as well.
Another good one for Scotty B. Domask is the most pleasantly quiet scorer I've seen in a Illini jersey in a while. Fun. Who are the best quiet scorers in Illinois history? I mean, Malcolm would eventually just have like 28 in a game. You're like, what? When did that happen? And Domask and Malcolm have some similarities as players.
Yeah. Kofi had some quiet games.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a rim rocker, but it just felt like Kofi's got 23. Wow. I mean, there was some of those games for sure.
Kofi shot 15 free throws. How did that happen?
Right. That's usually how it piled up.
Yeah.
You got to vote for Kawan Garris.
Kawan Garris? Yeah, might be a good one. Jeffrey, I think Dane gets a bad rap, not enough time. I think he's played well all year. Brad just keeps him on a short leash. I don't think Dane's played well all year. They have not been better when he's on the court. Derek and I have made this known, though. Like, we think he's a good player because he's the kind of player that needs time. Like, he needs 15 minutes to get going, like to get the full Dane player. So in a way, I don't think it's fair of him because he's not a 5-minute guy. He's not a guy who comes in, really sparks you like that. He gets 10, 12 minutes tonight, and you see what he can do in that kind of time. But Coleman Hawkins is just a better overall player. Like, so it's hard to take him off the court. Quincy Guerrier, until the last 2 games, had a really good season. So he just doesn't fit exactly what they're doing, especially when you're posting up a guard like Marcus Domask. Like, you can tell when Dane is on the court with Marcus Domask post-ups and booty ball, but he made up for it tonight in other ways. So I think Dane Danger can be a good Big Ten player. Just with this team, he's not the best fit.
Right. Yeah. Not everybody's a great pinch hitter either. So, like, those short
not everybody can stairs. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. There you go.
You got another one? You got another pinch hitter?
Oh, pinch hitter. Good pinch hitter.
Matt Stairs is like the greatest in Major League history.
I'm not a Cubs fan, but didn't Ben Zobrist he was a starter for that team, though, right? Yeah. I don't know.
I'm looking up greatest pinch hitters in MLB history. Matt Stairs is on that list. Harold Baines. He's a Hall of Fame player. Lenny Harris is another one for your old time. But anyway, yes, Dane is not a pinch hitter, to your point.
No, yeah. And, the mistakes are further highlighted. If he makes one, he might get buried on the bench, not get another chance to go out there. But yes, the way it gets clogged in the lane, when Marcus is trying to go down and booty ball, when Ty's around the rim. It's not ideal spacing. It's more of a fit issue. He's had his shortcomings, especially defensively. But if he was on a different team that was more willing to play through him in the post, give him more post touches, and I think sometimes if his motor on the glass could really do a lot better to maybe give him a little bit more consistent. It was really good tonight. Those are sometimes that can separate the Dane that you see tonight versus sometimes the other Dane that you get.
When Dane goes out there and hunts his one-on-one opportunities, I'm like, it might not end up well. When he hunts just being physical, making himself big, just giving that energy on the rim, it's really good. Joel, I hope Amani stays next year because I think he has a lot to offer. That drive tonight was awesome. Yeah, I'm very bullish on Amani Hansberry. If it weren't for Dane in front of him, right? Like I feel like he could play some good minutes. Like on a lower half Big Ten team, I think Amani be getting some big minutes and be going through the ups and downs of a normal freshman, but I think he's going to be a significant contributor.
No doubt. Yeah, and it was an encouraging play to drive that where Jamison Battle, I don't know if he jumped or I can't remember exactly what happened to open up the lane, but to be able to go there, get to the bucket, shows his skill. Like he's got legit skill at 6'7", 6'8". So whether he's going to be able to play the four with Merez Johnson, we'll be having that conversation a lot probably over the summer.
Yeah.
But I think for a guy that hasn't played a whole lot on the whole in general, but obviously throw in the injury as well, it's good to have those moments that, to make him to feel good about Illinois and a situation and him working hard. So, yes, you definitely want him to stick around. Illinois is very bullish on him long term and excited about the way that he's grown and just embracing right now the long-term upside for sure.
And next year, like the way I have it in my mind, it's like we've had the Dane Danger conversation. I just don't know if I pencil into my plans next year, but I do with Amani and Merez, and I'm like 15 to 20 minutes for each of those guys, and whoever they bring in the transfer portal that's a stretch guy, right? Like that can really, do some of the things Hawkins can do. I don't know if you're going to find all of that. Wasim Domask is the Iceman. Is that the nickname for Domask?
I don't know.
I mean, he was kind of a closer tonight, especially he got some points at the end of the game. Obviously, the end of the half, he was phenomenal. Just took over. I don't know. We haven't thought of a nickname for him. I don't know if he has a nickname.
Something to do with booty ball, I guess. But
yeah, we should probably do something off of booty ball, right?
Yeah,
that would make the most sense. All right,
we'll effort that for next time.
All right, I'm trying to see if we got any more. Rusty Staub was a clutch hitter. Brandon Paul, Robert Archibald, Kawan Garris, silent scores or quiet scores. Illini forever. I truly believe that Dane has a chance to be a conference player of the year in a cupcake conference. He could tear it up in the Missouri Valley if he wanted to go there.
Yeah.
If you want to do the reverse Domask. Ryan Terrio, Mick and Moriandini, some good names.
Wait till you see Matt Carpenter pinch hit this year. Oh boy.
Trapper keeper stickers are back. All right. Any final thoughts, Derek, before we get out of here?
I mean, it was a solid win. We'll see if it holds up as a quad one, but the fact that you kind of had a resurgence, possibly the breakout of Terrence Shannon, get some practice time, get a day off. You certainly feel good about that. I think they needed this. The mid-range magician, I like that.
Yeah.
Even though Io is definitely that as well. So we'll see as far as that goes. But, yeah, I mean, it was a feel-good win, and Ohio State's in a world of hurt. Chris Holtmann, I would have never thought that a guy that probably a few years ago we're talking on a short list of the best coaches in the Big Ten, now legitimately, deservingly on the hot seat. So
yeah, and every time we have like this conversation, like Holtmann and Underwood are hired at the same time. Both looked like great hires a couple of years ago. It's just a reminder of what Brad Underwood has done. Like I know the NCAA tournament success has to come, guys. I get it. I get that frustration. But every year right now, Illinois is in the Big Ten race. Last year, until the final week, Illinois was in the Big Ten race despite all of their issues last year. Like that was a down season, and you were 11-9, and you got in the NCAA tournament, and you had some fun players and Shannon, at times Matthew Meyer. Like he still got there without a doubt. And the last 5 years have been really good during conference play. We'll see if this team's got anything different during NCAA tournament play, of course, but just consistently, like it. You look at Michigan, Ohio State, like these two teams are right up there with you in the top 5 of the Big Ten a couple years ago, and now they look like disasters. And Underwood just keeps on chugging, man.
For sure, yeah. I thought of Juwan, like the fact that he was also a 1 seed that year, did get the Elite Eight, and then they had a Sweet 16. Of course, Illini fans definitely starved for that type of success in March, but the career arcs have been quite stark when it comes to a guy like Juwan. When it comes, I mean, it never really got off the ground for a guy like Archie Miller, hired in that same cycle with Brad and with Chris. Chris has had some good regular seasons, but 2 seed, lost to Oral Roberts that year, that same 2020, 2021.
I remember how great of a battle that was at the Big Ten tournament for the championship game. It was unbelievable. One of the best games I've covered.
Dwayne Washington. E.J. Liddell, obviously, suing before his injury.
The team was great.
It's a lot of fun. So I do want to mention, Joel, no, I'm not a Matt Carpenter apologist. I said that very sarcastically. I'm not excited to have him back.
Oh, I am the biggest Matt Carpenter apologist.
I know you are.
I'm a Cardinals fan. I love early Matt Carpenter more than the hit the bombs all the time, but he just made contact every time. Crimson, best guess as a seed of today, Illini 3 line. I think they're probably a 4. They kind of lack the win, the marquee wins, but keep winning games, Derek, and then get maybe 1 or 2 more, maybe get some in the Big Ten tournament. And then I think they can continue to rise, but they keep stacking wins. And I don't know if that Maryland game is going to stay a quad 3 loss or not, but that's their one blemish, and it's not the worst blemish in the world compared to a lot of these teams. So keep winning. You know, I think they're going to be a top 5 seed. You just would much rather be on that 3 seed than the 4 or 5 line.
Yeah, for sure. I think that definitely, at the zone, chance to get a bona fide quad 1 that's not going anywhere. We all know at Wisconsin in March and Purdue at home. Iowa, they lost tonight at Indiana. I don't know if that will stand. They're better in the quad, or I should say the net.
Root for Ohio State to win some games here, right?
Yeah.
And to stay quad 1. Go win at Michigan State. That would be huge. It's Saturday, so I'm guessing it's a CBS game or a Fox game at the Wars. At Maryland would be a quad 1 win. At Wisconsin would be a quad 1 win. At Iowa, and of course home against Purdue. Get 3 or 4 of those, and I think probably 4 of those. I think we can start talking about this team in the contention for a 3 seed or better.
Yeah, right. 3 seed with that many quad 1s, assuming you don't drop one at home that you shouldn't. That should be the baseline. Potential to even go, to a 2. We'll see. The Big 12 is stacked. Obviously, they're going to get some really good bids, and the ACC has some of the upside. Although Carolina lost tonight at Ja Tech, which was an interesting loss for them. Tennessee lost at home to South Carolina. So some teams that are ahead of Illinois in the net.
Well, my parents, man.
He's a good coach. We liked him when he was at Chattanooga.
Yeah, should have beat Illinois that day because Illinois played.
Yeah.
Anyway, that'll do it for us. Thank you to everybody watching on our live YouTube channel. There's more than 600 people at this at one time. We really appreciate you guys, all the support. Hit the like button, subscribe to us. We really appreciate that. If you're listening on the audio version, follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to us, rate us, review us. We appreciate all of it. We got plenty more. Joey is in Ohio State. Derek will have something from this as long as Baby Piper does not arrive tonight. And I'll have player grades and much, much more on Illinois basketball's win at Ohio State. Everybody have a great night. Take care of each other. We'll talk to you next time right here on the Illini Inquirer podcast.